Pay Your People Better, June 2nd, 2026. I realized while I was making these hot dogs in the process of, I just finished cooking. The links. Set this timer on clear. Did an appointment with my my doctor, psychiatrist, in just about an hour. But while I was making this food, I realized that I over-prepared too damn much. It's like in my fridge right now, I have this big container. Like all of my big containers are full. One is, oops, I'm not on the camera really. One is full of broth, one is full of rice, one is full of lentils, and then one is full of like an onion dip because I caramelized some onions. Also, I'm sick. I caramelized some onions and I was like, what am I going to do with this? And then I had this French dip and I was like, because I bought 2 of these and I didn't realize there was 2 per because it says it very small on the box. Should have known better, but whatever. So, I'm like, well, okay, I bought these onions, and then caramelized the onions. I should be using the saute function on my Instant Pot for caramelized onions instead of the slow cook option. Because this shit almost took 2 days. That was ridiculous. But anyway, speaking of, I gotta brush this fucker off because I got flour on it yesterday because I also made some goddamn bread. And I'm like, because I'll get hungry and instead of eating something because it's late and I shouldn't be eating anything, I'll make food. That's like, what the fuck is wrong with me? That's not a wise idea. Not at all. I bought these hot dogs and stuff so that, they can last a little while. But at the same time, they will only last so long. And so I got a fridge full of fucking food that isn't getting eaten. So, like, after I'm done with my psychiatrist, I'm going to go to the store at some point, not immediately after, but, because I can't be bothered to do 2 things back to back unless I'm sick for some reason. Because, like, the other day, so I think it was Saturday when I was still awake I was still awake technically on Saturday, but it was literally Sunday when I was realizing this. Did I actually start that timer? Okay, good. I realized, oh, hey, also, if you ever want to figure out how to use a Kewpie Mayo bottle and get the shit at the bottom, do it like a toothpaste tube and roll it. Get the most of it out. Get your money's worth. Shit's not cheap. So anyway, while I was still awake from the previous day, from the previous Saturday, however, hold on. Since it wants to fucking fill up with air, we can work with that. Come on. Want to fill up with air? Okay. Then what we'll do is we'll just get that final bit out. I was feeling that scratch in the back of my throat like you do sometimes feel when... Because like I can usually tell when I'm about to get sick. At least like with a cold. Flu usually just happens. Flu, I'm like fine one day, and the next day I'm just like, what the fuck? Just knocked on my ass. Alright, well, that's the majority of it. Anyway. And so I realized that I knew I was going to be sick on Sunday, which today is Tuesday. And I was like, maybe a coffee, because having all the cold brew makes it so much easier to make coffee. I also have water. Water works. Oh, I also had like 5 egg whites that I haven't used in a while, so then I threw in some eggs. And then use my immersion blender attachment. Goes on the back of my Cuisinart blender mixer, hand mixer. And blended the shit out of those. Because I don't have much purpose for egg whites on their own. It's like, there's not a lot you can do with them. Like, you can do some things, but most of what I'm doing is not going to incorporate them in any culinary aspect. So what I'll do is, depending on how many whites there are, will determine how many eggs I throw in. And I usually try to do about half or less. Or like one, if I try to do like 2-to-1 whites to whole, -1 generally. That way, I can make a pretty overall, like a significantly more egg white than, you know, typical egg scramble. Because then I'll just scramble. I don't give a shit. But yeah, on Sunday, somehow I managed to conjure up the energy to do 4 loads of laundry. Which cost me like $17. Because it's $2.25 per wash, plus $2 to dry. So it's $4.25 per, which means it's basically $16 plus another $1. And it's 2 blankets, so that's 1 wash per, 1 dry per. As I tried otherwise, it does not work. In fact, one time, I spent over $20 trying to clean like 2 loads of laundry, basically, because like when they came out of the washer, they were just fucking soaked. So I don't know if like there was something wrong with the washer or whatever. I don't know. So to be really conscientious about that. Hell, I was in the elevator the other day. It was probably about a week or 2 ago. Dude's talking about how he flipped his wash and dry cycle. Like he tried to wash in the dryer, and then dry in the washer or something. So when he tried to wash in the dryer, he put fucking soap in there. And I'm just like, fuck, man, that's something that could happen here. Great. So, not fall into that. I already mentioned that I have AAA now for homeowners insurance. Unfortunately, they've been very, when I went to just kind of read up on their stuff on Wikipedia, I started, like seeing more things about like why they were formed and all that kind of stuff. And they're very anti-socialist. It's like, it's weird because it's like the whole point of AAA was it's like a group of like automotive, basically a bunch of car lovers were like, hey, our car loving society isn't like, and this was like in the early 1900s, our car loving society isn't getting the love that it deserves. So what we're going to do is we're going to band together all of their car loving groups into one bigger group. And we're going to work towards making our car loving society a better society and improve the world around that, like improving roads and stuff like that. And the problem is that it's now gotten to the point where it's like, okay, they have to maintain that. And so things like public transit are in opposition to the car-loving society, and so they tend to lobby against things like public transit. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. And I'm seeing a lot of this, like, to take it politically, because why not? I always end up talking politics, because everything is politics. Everything is political. Nobody watches these anyway. I know, I see the view count. There's always 0, unless I'm the one watching them. Nevertheless, the other day I was in Imgur, and I'm like, conservative has always been the problem. Because one of the problems also with like the current sort of political discourse, I need a sip of my coffee. Is how, the MAGA ultra-right are having their little civil war. And some people are like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're a convenient ally. That's about it. They're not your friend just because they happen to be right on like 1 or 2 talking points. Look at the rest of their portfolio, so to speak. They have been, like, people were talking about, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. You're not. She's agreeing with you. She has 1 or 2 or maybe 3 points in which you have had specific opinions about for years, probably, where she's now saying, hey, I'm saying these positive things. Same thing with like Candace Owens. Even fucking Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan tries to be like this enlightened centrist, but he's not. He's still a hard right. He's not like maybe super alt-right, but he still endorsed a current fuckhead in the office. He's still like fucking. What is it? This idea of not wanting to hold a specific opinion. I used to be that way, by the way. I used to do that. And part of it was wanting to be accepted. It was a sense, it was a desire to be accepted by others. That's why I did this. Like, because I wasn't... To take a quote from a not great film, although in many ways it is good, it could have been executed a little better so that you could actually have like a fuller understanding, and I may have to rewatch it anyway. Sucker Punch. The guy who, I don't know why he's even in the film, but he's like this regular character that is constantly inserted into all these little scenarios that come about. At one point, he's like, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And I never truly believed that. I still don't necessarily believe it, but I will say, if you stand for nothing, you will definitely become more prevalent to falling for certain things. Because if you say, well, I don't really want to pick a lane, so to speak. You know, I'm just trying to look at everything as objectively as possible. What you're not doing is actually looking at facts. Because if you look at facts, you know, during COVID, the reason I even brought this up is like Joe Rogan was talking about fucking, you know, and even now, like ivermectin is a cancer cure. Like, there's no data on that. There's maybe a couple of people who have had experiences like that. But even then, because he had like Mel Gibson on at one point, and Mel Gibson's like talking about, and he's like being all like shy and shit about trying to say the actual thing. And it's like, why are they both beating around the fucking bush? They know that if they actually say it, they'll get the backlash. They don't want the backlash because they want fucking people to like them. Because everybody is insecure, and every human being on some scale fears the biggest human fear, which is rejection. You know, when people talk about cancel culture, they're afraid of rejection. Everybody is afraid of rejection on some scale, except for certain people like sociopaths who couldn't give two fucks. Now, they still want you to like them, but they don't want you to like them. They want you to like them for long enough so that they can take advantage of you. They don't actually care that you have an opinion about them. What they care about is, how long can I get you to like me so that I can get something out of you? Which is often a lot of what they're doing. They're saying the thing so they get you on the same page just long enough so they can get something out of you. You know, instead of trying to better themselves, not so much that they get more people to like them, but just so they can actually integrate in society. You know, and I'm one to talk. I'm terrible at integrating into society. But you have to be a little bit vulnerable in order to do that. And people are afraid of vulnerability, afraid of showing vulnerability, because again, they're afraid of rejection. The same thing with me. You know, we all do it, right? But I'm also not in a position of political power where I can literally change the laws of the land. You know? And then, you know, like, to what degree are they doing it? Why are they doing it? What is their purpose? What is their focal point? Why do they care? You know, they're all humans at the end of the day. Some of them are more sociopathic than others. But the fact is that the ones that are more sociopathic, I mean, obviously this is one of the reasons why people will try to appeal to your empathy and be like, look, there's still people and they still want these things. And it's like, sure, but we're going to keep them at fucking arm's length right now because of all the bullshit they've been saying for the past decade or so. It's like, if somebody has been, let's say, somebody in your apartment complex, you live in an apartment, they're not a neighbor, so to speak, but they are in essence because they live in the same building as you. But they have been saying things, and or rather, not even saying. Let's say they like to try to find copper wire. And so they start pointing out places where copper wire is available in the building. They're not actually going around ripping copper out of the walls, but they're pinpointing it. They're doing everything they can to indicate where copper wiring is in the building. And so when other people, be they actual neighbors, people who live in the building, or otherwise outside of the building, learn about the fact that there's copper wiring in the building and where you can find it, and then parts of the building start getting stripped away and copper wiring starts getting stripped out of the building, and then like the functioning of the building starts to fall apart, I'm not going to be happy about going and I'm not going to have a fucking sit down conversation, have coffee with that motherfucker. It's not happening. If what they have done has caused the fabric, caused the functionality of your living space to become more chaotic and less stable, and have invited people into your home in a way that isn't directly inviting into your home, but it's still there, wherein there's a need for more security, more observation, you end up becoming more paranoid, etc. That person has a significant enough influence in your life to make your day-to-day life more problematic. Even if you aren't necessarily a direct victim, you can still be an indirect victim, just like I was when it came to that jail rape. Like, I wasn't the one who was the actual victim of the rape while I was in jail waiting for my own fucking trial. I was in pre-trial, and I ended up going before the judge without a trial because I don't have fucking time to just be sitting in jail. Dude gets sexually assaulted by other inmates, but then everybody else gets to hear it and potentially see it, depending on circumstance. It was darker because it was just after midnight. I know that it was just after midnight because that's when the fucking lights went down. And then they had just in the what are they called? I don't know. Whatever their fucking title is, the cops that are there. Prison guards. There's a correctional officer. Whatever the fuck. Corrections. What corrections are they making? Should they be the ones wearing a red cap so that they can we're the red pin of the prison system? And here are our corrections. Anyway. I have PTSD from that experience. It's not as significant now. I don't get triggered off it as much. But that act is not only to make that person comply, but anybody else who is witness to it to also comply. And the same thing with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro and fucking Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan and all them, and all the other fucking right-winger bullshit assholes, all what they're doing is it is causing, because they are creating, instead of just going after the facts, instead of just talking about the fucking facts, because you can't just talk about the facts about a point for 3 fucking hours. Like, even when he had like Joe Rogan had Neil deGrasse Tyson on his podcast for 3 hours, it's like they still talked about bullshit. Because you can't really talk about the facts for 3 hours and have an entertaining podcast. It just doesn't work. And so you have to add sensationalism. You have to add these like appeals to emotion and shit. And it's problematic because then people are listening to or watching certain clips of your show, and then some of them just enough, because 330 million people in America is a lot of people. Hank Green just put out a video yesterday about how you don't know how many people there are, because there's a fuck ton of people. And when you recycle one aluminum can, you're not doing a lot when you recycle that one can. But when millions of people do it, then it actually has significant impact. And so the fact that there's so many people that could potentially listen to these podcasts, and then of those so many people, even a fraction of those people, you could have 10 or 20 or 100,000, depending, who might be like, you know what, I'm going to make a fucking change, and so I'm going to do something about it. And that something could be shooting another podcaster in the neck, rightfully so. Or it could be several hundred of you, or a couple thousand people attacking a government building and the people within it to try to overthrow a democratic election. And so the fact that there are people within the building who are stirring up enough trouble, not only amongst the people within the building, but also outside of the building, to the point where actual functions of the building are being compromised, I'm not going to just fucking sit down and have a goddamn coffee and a conversation with them. Some people might do that and think that might actually cause, they might be able to bridge a gap or whatever, but the problem is they've been doing it for too fucking long, and I'm not willing to fall for it because I'm standing up for something else, which is fuck those people. Is that a flaw of mine? Probably. But trust is something that is built in youth. And that wasn't really well done in my life. So maybe I'll grow up in time. I don't know. But right now, the enemy of my enemy could also still be my enemy. They're just a different kind of enemy. And while they say keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer, right now I'm going to say no. Have fun.